Linum arenicola, sand flax, is a federally endangered species endemic to Miami-Dade and Monroe counties in South Florida, where more than half of the known populations are now extirpated. The 13 that remain are found in remnant globally imperiled pine rockland Armorel Prairie, as well as disturbed areas that supported these habitats long ago.
But those habitats are almost gone from this area now. So it's relegated to kind of scraped edges that are maintained by mowing, or canal banks like this, which is a mowed edge. And then sometimes just kind of strange habitats like parking lots and things like that that are left. That's all that's left for it.
In the lower Keys, habitat disappears with every passing hurricane as sea levels rise.
So one of the sites was No Name Key, where we monitored almost monthly, and we had to rely on the help of volunteers.
But management is especially tricky with this species, since it requires periodic disturbance to persist, and it's difficult to prescribe fire in South Florida, and mowing regimes can easily be too much or not enough.
The complexity here is we're right next to a big airstrip for the U.S. Air Force, and so prescribed burning is incredibly difficult here.
Therefore, to prevent population extirpation of Linum arenicola, local land managers, biologists, and other key players are taking action.
Land ownership with sand flax is so many different people, so many different agencies, so it's a complicated picture. I think public awareness of sand flax is pretty much zero.
Even managers and botanists, when searching for this plant, have trouble finding it. Unless it's in bloom, it is very inconspicuous. It has tiny yellow flowers, which is a common color in wildflowers. The biggest threat to Linum arenicola is habitat loss. It is an endangered species, and the habitat itself is critically imperiled.
So sand flax thrives in areas that has high light and low competition. In the past, that would have been marl prairies, which are grassy and sunny, and probably rocky edges of marl prairies. And that's just not left here in Miami anymore. So the way to maintain its habitat now is pretty much with a lawnmower.
There's just not enough open space. So we've come up with some surrogate ideas like conservation mowing and restoration mowing, where we're using mowing as a technique instead of fire to try and open up space and to knock down the bigger grasses that take up more space to allow room for linum.
The work that the Institute for Regional Conservation is doing with the air reserve base is really important for habitat recovery for this species.
3 of my biggest roles are getting money for restoration, educating the people on base about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and also identification of these species. And the third is working with the grounds maintenance and how to preserve these species and maintain these species.
And if we hadn't have started to actually reduce native hardwoods and start to mow to knock down the grass competition, actually this would look like that.
One of the biggest threats here, especially being in South Florida, is invasive species. Whether it be flora or fauna, for outcompeting these species would be one of the biggest concerns.
One of the amazing things of my work with Linum arenicola is just this: once you get rid of these invasive grasses, it's just the repopulation of these native species that come back through the dead plant material. So it's all sitting under there. It's just waiting to get sunlight again.
Next steps for sand flax conservation in South Florida, we really would like to do more population surveys on a regular basis, seed banking. We need to perfect how to grow the species, and then lastly, we need to do more reintroductions into appropriate habitat.
During the past few years, we've made progress on seed research, so we know how to germinate the sand flax seeds, and we also did tests to make sure that the seeds actually survive being frozen and desiccated. There's always the danger of losing a population, and if you have seeds banked from that population, you still have an opportunity to regrow plants and then actually reintroduce them or augment existing populations.
One thing that we still need to learn about this species is how to transition it from the germination phase indoors to growing outdoors.
3 of the biggest challenges that we face growing sand flax: it has never been grown in cultivation, it is not a robust grower, and transplanting the plant.
To better improve our efforts, we should experiment with water regimes as well as different media substrates.
The work that Brittany Harris has been doing with her PhD dissertation has been really interesting.
So seed is produced without the need for pollinators, but we found too that when pollinators are present, fruit and seed set is a lot higher.
We'd like to try to rescue or conserve plants that are going to be in the footprint of some of this development, but we can't do that unless we know it's there. So it's important to know where the populations are and how they're doing.
So we have to have a very long-term view. We have to make sure the projects are funded, that they're done by people who are qualified to do them, and that we don't have the mentality that restoration is a short-term fix. It is not.